Hey, hello, and welcome to the very first episode of the Grounded Empath podcast. I'm your host, John Price III, and as a brief introduction, I'm a life coach, a breathwork facilitator, a sound meditation guide, and a lifelong deep feeler who spent way too many years shrinking and shape shifting and saving or helping everybody else in order to feel safe, loved, or enough. Does this sound familiar? Is this you? So, this podcast is a space where our sensitivity isn't pathologized, it's really honored, and where deep emotional depth isn't seen as dramatic, but it's sacred, and where we get to explore how to live, breathe, and just really root deeply into who we actually are without apology. Does that make sense? So, I guess another way to say it is this space, this podcast is for those of you who feel everything, the ones who can't ignore injustice. And if you're like me, probably the ones that will cry during commercials. You can sense other people's emotions and often feel so much that you're probably not sure if those feelings are yours or what is others. It all just becomes a mishmash. Or maybe you've been told you're too emotional, that you're too intense, you're too much. Or maybe you felt like you had to over explain yourself just to be understood. And you've tried to keep the peace and hold the space, soften your edges, right? For everyone else except yourself. If any of that sounds familiar, that resonates with you, you are so welcome here. And not only just welcome, but you're wanted and you're needed. And just invite you to just let that settle. And take a little breath with me or a deep breath. Just inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. And just let yourself land right here. I created this podcast because for a long time, I didn't have a space like this. I was navigating life as an empathic man, as a gay man, in systems that taught me to mask my softness and intellectualize my emotions, and that my validation was through the hustle and the productivity and maintaining those facades, all while really I was just collapsing inside. And even though I had the words, I didn't always have the language to know how to express myself. And while I knew how to help and hold space for others and be the go to person, I didn't know how to hold myself, how to be there for myself. And so, what I really needed was I needed a space where I didn't have to filter my truth in order to be respected, where I didn't have to earn my belonging. Do you know what I mean? How that may land for you? Does that land for you? So, this podcast, this is the space that I wish I had. And now here we are, and I get to share it with you. And it's such a deep honor. In each episode, it's going to be my goal to provide some sort of a reflection prompt, something to think about. Maybe you want to journal, maybe you want to do a voice note. I don't know, whatever feels good and right to you. So here's the first prompt. What space or feeling have you been longing for, but you didn't know how to ask for? I'll say that one more time. What space or feeling have you been longing for, but just didn't know how to ask for? So let's talk a little bit about what you can expect here. This isn't a podcast of, let's say, surface level advice or any spiritual bypassing. That's absolutely not what I'm here for. We are here to go through it. We are going to go deep. We're going to have heart to hearts. There's no toxic positivity here. It's not all love and light. Unless we're also talking about the shadow and the shame, right? It's all a holistic package. So, yes, there will be positivity and there will be some heavier topics, but hopefully always something that will land and guide yourself into becoming a more grounded empath. So, each week, what my goal is to weave together different topics, such as some nervous system wisdom. There will be some breath work and embodiment. That's just what I do, and I love it. And really, there's so much wisdom in the body. We'll be working on some emotional intelligence. I talk about some trauma informed healing, some energy hygiene. I believe that this is something that we're not really taught a lot of. And it's so important, so key to preserve our precious energy. Something else that's really important to me are those boundaries and truth telling, all ultimately with the goal of restoring that self trust, that pleasure, and really reclaiming your voice and your space. Right? So, some episodes, they'll be solo, like this one. My hope is that as this gets going, other episodes may include guests, maybe some fellow empaths, some therapists, other space holders. Love to get some mystics, some movement leaders. We'll see. We'll see. But really, the goal is those guests who know what it means to really walk the walk. And you can pretty much count on that there may be a few breathwork moments, some guided rituals or practices, if you will, and probably even a little bit of fire. Because if we're being real, some of this healing work that we need to do, it does include some of that holy, that righteous rage as well. I believe in all my spaces that all emotions are welcome, all of them are needed, all of them serve a purpose. The joy, the anger, the heaviness, the sadness. Gosh, there's so many. And they're all welcomed and embraced. So there'll be some of that, I'm sure, as these episodes go on. So maybe let's talk a little bit about me. I can take you back a few years. And I'm sure we'll be visiting my past and my lived experiences as these episodes go on. But how I got to this place where I am now, I thought I was doing all the right things. At least it looked right on paper. I was, oh my gosh, maybe a definition of successful professionally, having worked with a lot of great companies, corporate life. I was very productive. I was helpful. Yeah, always there, being the go to guy. But really, beneath it all, I was exhausted. I was tired. And honestly, a lot of that started to lead to resentment just of myself, my situation. It was just emanating. And it caused this disconnection from my own body, from my own truth, from my own inner knowing. And I was just drowning, I think. No, not I think. I know I was drowning in this emotional responsibility and the really the unspoken grief of having never really been fully seen, I guess would be the best way to put it. And catching myself always saying yes when I really wanted to say no, when I really meant no. I was showing up really strong when I really just, I needed a moment to fall apart. It's putting so much energy and time into building a life that looked good, I think, from the outside, but it didn't really feel like mine. It didn't feel like my life. So I would say that my turning point, it didn't come through a single breakthrough. It actually came from just an emotional collapse. It came from burnout. It, yeah, I had enough. My breakthrough, it came with a breakup. It came from me finally asking, what if I stopped trying to fix myself to fit in to everybody else's expectations and started feeling myself instead? And that's truly, yeah, that is when everything started to shift for me. It meant making some major life changes and making some of the most difficult and yet also the best decisions for myself in order to make space for the life that I knew I was ready for. And that led me on quite a journey. It's been about 5 years now, and maybe longer. As you'll learn during these episodes, I am not a maths person. If I start quoting numbers, second guess that. All right. So during this journey over the last 5 years, yeah, I have found breath work. I have found this embodiment of myself in a way that I had never felt or found before. I found really that self trust, that trusting of my intuition, that trusting of that inner wisdom that we all have. And sometimes we just push it away. And through all of this, little by little, I started coming home. I found my way home to me. I have another reflection prompt for you. Again, just something to journal on or think about during this week, right? When was the moment that you realized something in your life was no longer sustainable? And what part of you spoke up first? Now, let me say that one more time. When was the moment you realized something in your life was no longer sustainable, that you just could no longer put up with? What part of you spoke up first? Just let that settle in. So here's the invitation. And not just for this podcast, okay, but for your life. And I'd really love to know this. What would it feel like to live as a grounded empath, to really be rooted in your body and connected to your truth, to be unapologetic in your softness while also making it your strength, and just claiming that sovereignty in your sensitivity? What would that feel like? Because that's what we're doing here. All right. We're not just here to heal or just to talk, but we are returning to ourselves, returning to our core, finding ourselves, returning to self, returning to this rhythm of our body and who we are, right? Returning to that knowing that you are allowed to take up space, to feel fully, and to lead with your heart, knowing that you are safe and held, right? So I want you to hear this. You don't need to be less sensitive. You don't need to be more resourced. And this space is here to help you do exactly that. Okay? Now, I did promise, or hinted rather, that there would probably be some breath during these episodes. So let's take a moment to do that right now. I want you to find a comfortable position, placing both feet on the ground, maybe one hand on your heart if that feels good, or maybe on your belly. And I want you to take a deep inhale through your nose and let that breath actually fill your belly. All right. So inhale and then exhale through your mouth, and just let your shoulders drop. Just let that tension melt away. And do that 2 or 3 more times, whatever feels good, whatever feels right. Just acknowledge that you made it here today, right? You made it here, and we get to let that be enough for today. And that's beautiful. So if you're still here, listening, watching, whatever you may be doing, thank you. Thank you for trusting me with your time, with your energy and your presence. And please, if you already are feeling this space already, I would deeply appreciate it if you would share it, maybe with a friend, family member, someone who you feel could really benefit from this conversation. Feel free to DM me. You can leave a review on whichever channel you're listening or watching this podcast on. Yeah, and when you tell a friend, this is how we grow a movement of just grounded, truth telling, heart led empaths who are no longer shrinking just to survive. We're done with that, okay? Let's be done. We get to stand strong and proud in just who we are. So if you'd like more of me, you're welcome to join me for monthly breathwork sessions. I offer those online. I do also coaching, so we can go into some deeper coaching journeys. Or you're also welcome to follow along on my Instagram. You can find me at johnprice3rd.coaching. Right? That's JOHN Price, PRICEIII.coaching on Instagram. I would love to hear what landed for you today. What did the prompts bring up for you? What else would you like to hear about? Please reach out. Let me know. And next week, what we'll be doing is we're going to be diving into what it really means to be an empath. And not just by definition, but really the deep lived experience of being an empath. And while I don't typically like to make promises, I do feel like it's going to make you feel incredibly seen. All right. So until then, stay soft, stay grounded, and still stay radically, beautifully yourself.